Is everybody still with us? All right, just checking in. It's now my pleasure to introduce my colleague, Mayor Mike Savage, who will offer official remarks on behalf of the Halifax Regional Municipality.
Good morning. Thank you for being here this morning. It's an extraordinary honor to be here on behalf of the citizens of the Halifax region. And I've been very touched as I walk through the crowd. There are people here from many places, specifically to be with us today, as well as our distinguished guests on stage and so many people here. We have guests here from Vancouver. How you doing? Came from Vancouver today. People who came here from England to be here today, from Boston, from Moncton, from St. Thomas, Ontario, from Peterborough, Ontario. People have come here today to stand in the rain and honor the memory of those who died 100 years ago today. Thank you. And if you came from far away, thank you. If you came from nearby, thank you as well. It's my belief that history is told through the individual stories. The numbers you know. It is the individual stories that tell the story of the Halifax Explosion. It's the story of Vincent Coleman, who gave his life to save 300 people coming on a train, who knew that he was giving his life. And his Morse code is tapped into the steel over here. You can see it before you leave. His relatives are here today. Jim Coleman came from Calgary. Thank you, sir, for being with us today. I'm very pleased that the city of Halifax, very soon we will have our newest ferry, will be going back and forth across Halifax Harbour under the name Vincent Coleman. And I want to acknowledge Councillor David Hensby, who for many years has been pushing for this. David, I hope you're a proud man today. The individual story, the Jackson family, many of whom were under the tent. 65 Jacksons lost their lives in the Halifax explosion, and we have their relatives with us today. Cecilia Coolin, who I think is with us today. Cecilia Coolin is with us in the front. Ladies and gentlemen, she was 10 days old when the Halifax explosion happened, and she is here with us today. She looks like she's about 60. The individual story of Mary Jean Hinch, who woke up on the morning of December the 6th, 100 years ago, to get her 10 children off to school, her husband off to work, to have a cup of tea with her mother. And when she next laid her head on a pillow, her 10 children were dead. Her mother had died. 6 brothers and sisters died. Her husband died. She survived. She was blown away by the blast, and they found her a day later, pregnant. In April of 1918, she gave birth to Hubert. Extraordinary story. She lost 4 children before the explosion, 2 to scarlet fever, 1 to pneumonia, and 1 to an undisclosed illness. It's an extraordinary story. She later married again, and she had 2 more children. She survived because, as she said, what else do you do? It is the individual stories of this explosion and the resilience of somebody like Mary Jean, who lived until 1958, 41 years after the explosion, when her body was put in Mount Olivet Cemetery beside her husband and her 10 children. What a story. So to whomever you seek comfort from, to whomever you pray in the evening, to whomever you get guidance, when you close your eyes tonight and think to that person, ask for a blessing for those who lived 100 years ago, to those who were killed, to those who survived, and to those who rebuilt. And we say to them what we say to our great military heroes on Remembrance Day: we will remember them.
We will remember.
Thank you.
Thank you very much, Savage. It is now my pleasure to introduce Jim Coleman, the grandson of Vince Coleman, the train dispatcher for the Canadian Government Railway, who was killed in the Halifax Explosion, but not before he sent a message to an incoming passenger train to stop out of range of the explosion. Today he's remembered as one of the heroic figures from the disaster. We now welcome Jim Coleman to bring remarks and recognition for survivors.
Good morning. I'm Jim Coleman. My grandfather was Vince Coleman, and 100 years ago today he was the train dispatcher. His office was just down here, a few hundred feet from the Mont Blanc, and he was like you are today out on the wharf looking at the ships burning in the harbor, and he was advised that they were going to blow up. So he went back to his office and, as was said earlier, he typed out there and telegraphed that message and stopped the train, saving many lives. On behalf of my brother, my family, my cousin's family who lived in the area, we'd like to thank you for including my grandfather and all the other people that experienced the Halifax Explosion in this, the 100th anniversary. I would also like to express our appreciation to Mayor Savage and the other distinguished guests for acknowledging this, the 100th anniversary. I did not know my grandfather, but for what was written about him and the stories that we heard about him, I would like to have known the man. Our family really didn't talk about the Halifax Explosion very much, nor my grandfather. Some families speak about these things and others don't. And I guess we fell in the latter type of families. And I thought about it a lot lately, and I think it's because the explosion was such a horrific tragedy. It was something that people didn't talk about. And now 100 years later, it's becoming easier to talk about this type of thing. I do recall, however, my father from time to time discussing it, albeit briefly. He was 11 years old and he was walking back from the church through the devastation and the ghost-like atmosphere just after the explosion. And when you think about that, it's difficult to imagine what it was like to live through that and really, talk about it. As they said, unfortunately, my grandfather was not one of the survivors, but because of him, many more survivors, and we can all be grateful for that. It's a little wet today. Vince Coleman was a genuine hero to me, my family, and to many others. And we're very proud and humbled by the city acknowledging my grandfather. He had a choice. He had a choice to stay, or he had a choice to leave and try to save his life. We believe he made the right choice. He stayed, and for that many people lived. Michael Bird wrote a book, The Town That Died. I met Michael, and I think his book is well worth reading. However, Michael was wrong. The city was devastated, destroyed in many places, but it did not die. The survivors, like my grandfather, had a choice. They also had a choice to stay or leave, go to Truro, go to St. John, New Brunswick, go somewhere else, but they stayed and rebuilt the city into this marvelous place we have today. They are also heroes in my view. So I'd like to take this moment to remember all the heroes, my grandfather, the survivors who rebuilt the city, as well as those who lost their lives. I salute and honor all of them. On behalf of my brother, my cousins, and my family, thank you very much.
Thank you so much. Ladies and gentlemen, we will now commence the laying of the wreaths. So I will announce each wreath, and then please get into your spot and lay it on the wall there. So first, the wreath will be laid by His Honor, the Honorable Arthur LeBlanc, Lieutenant Governor of Nova Scotia. the Honorable Stephen McNeill, Premier of the Province of Nova Scotia. Darren Fisher, Member of Parliament for Dartmouth Co-Harbour. Mayor of the Halifax Regional Municipality, His Worship Mike Savage. Consul General of the United States of America in Halifax, Mr. Stephen Esco Dietrich. Assistant Commissioner Brian Brennan, Commanding Officer, H Division, Royal Canadian Mounted Police. Halifax Regional Fire and Emergency, Chief Ken Stuber. Chief Jean Blais, Halifax Regional Municipality Police. Halifax Explosion 100th Anniversary Advisory Committee, Chair Craig Walkington. Thank you. We now ask all those in attendance wishing to place wreaths at the monument to do so at this time. We thank you for their support of this commemoration. We will have members here to help with the commencing of the laying of the community wreaths as well. And if you don't get to place yours, we'll make sure that you do get up there.
Where did they from Ireland? From Ireland. I've gone back at least that far. I know that they came from Florida. So we're organizing a Oh, well, okay. War. War. Oh, okay. Sure. We never knew that. A lot of children from the West Coast. Cut back.
Eric, we need more umbrellas. It's cut back, so we can only afford one. Thank you for coming
seen you at some of the other events? There's the reception, there's the mass, there's a dinner. If not, then you will. Yeah, you too. And safe flight. Yeah. Okay. Nice meeting you. I don't want to.
I also like to apologize. I missed one of our VIP reefs. Brigadier General D.A. Macaulay, Commander of the 5th Canadian Division and Deputy Commander of the Joint Task Force Atlantic. My apologies.
You're a local? Oh, across the water. We're from the other island, Vancouver Island.
We're going to commence the ceremony in about 30 seconds. So everyone may never
Fascinating for us to be here. No.
Oh, okay, there's Kathy. Bill. Right here, Bill.
Part of my Christmas Centennial.
Ladies and gentlemen, I will now call upon Reverend John Morrell from St. Mark's Anglican Church to offer closing prayers.
At the time of the explosion, there were 4 very active Christian churches in the North End. St. Mark's, St. Joseph Roman Catholic, Grove Presbyterian, and K Street Methodist. We now come 100 years later. St. Joseph's, Grove Street, K Street, the Reformed United Memorial are no longer active or involved. And it is my distinct pleasure to offer a closing prayer on behalf of St. Mark's as a legacy for those congregations and those survivors as well. Let us pray. Heavenly Father, on that fateful day in 1917, at a time of great hopelessness, destruction, fire, snow, death, and injuries, we give thanks that many survivors placed their own lives in jeopardy by searching the rubble for survivors, by searching hospitals for injured loved ones, for reuniting children with parents, and providing food, shelter, and clothing to the thousands of homeless. As the accident and destruction happened 19 days before Christmas, we give thanks that many families still found the way of celebrating with those who survived. Thankfulness for those who welcomed them into undamaged homes, and the relief as doctors, nurses, and supplies flooded into Halifax from across Canada and New England to help Haligonians rebuild their lives. Your Son Jesus taught us to love the Father with our whole heart and being, and to love our neighbors as ourselves. We give thanks that that love was shown to survivors of this remarkable and terrible calamity. The love that enabled businesses to be rebuilt, for the resettlement here of the North End, and for the continuing ways we show love to those less fortunate to ourselves by our gifts of time, talent, and money to other disasters around the world. Heavenly Father, we give thanks in this, the 100th anniversary year, for the continuing opportunity to gather here at the foot of the Memorial Carillon at Fort Needham Park, and to reflect upon the events of 100 years ago, that we may continue to offer our children and grandchildren the same opportunities to pause, reflect, and remember. Say Amen.
Thank you, Reverend Moore. Ladies and gentlemen, we wish to offer thanks for the following support to today's ceremony: Canadian Armed Forces and the Canadian Forces Base of Halifax. And also thank you, Rear Admiral, for your service. The Stadacona Band of the of the Royal Canadian Navy was performed with the kind permission of the Commander Maritime Forces Atlantic, Halifax Fire Department Honor Guard, Halifax Regional Police Color Guard, Parliamentary Poet Laureate George Elliott Clark, Halifax Regional Municipalities Poet Laureate Rebecca Thomas, Chris Alworth, and Reverend John Morrell of Hope United Church. Ladies and gentlemen, before we conclude, we wish to bring to your attention the following commemorative events that will occur today. Immediately following this ceremony, there will be a reception at St. Joseph's Alexander McKay Elementary School. We ask that you please use the K Street entrance. And I also just want to thank you personally for hanging in there with us. You all are beautiful and amazing. Yes, give yourself a round of applause. Thank you so much. And if you call in sick tomorrow, your boss should not worry about it. Ladies and gentlemen, would you please rise for the departure of their honors, or his honor, the Honorable Arthur J. LeBlanc, Lieutenant Governor of Nova Scotia. Thank you. Thank you for coming this morning.